All right, guys, as promised, many of you guys doubted it. I got Kim Dotcom sitting either here or here. I don't know where he's going to be at just yet. Kim, I really appreciate you coming on the channel. A lot of people doubted the fact that I was going to get such a great guy like yourself on my channel. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. You're a legend. You're a legend. And in this space, a lot of the people in my audience actually doubted the fact that I'd have you on the channel because, I mean, you're known as more or less a freedom fighter. And in my channel, my demographic's a lot older. I have like 35 years and older, and everyone has like a more of that libertarian aspect of cryptocurrency. So, I mean, everyone knew who you were. So to actually have you here kind of is like, bringing the hero of a bunch of people on the channel. So
you're kind. Thank you.
Yeah. So the reason we have Kim here today is I want to talk about the K.IM platform, first and foremost, because if you guys don't know, Kim created the Megauploads, which had to turn into Mega.NZ, and now his final creation, right, K.IM, is basically taking the first two versions of the upload model and almost perfecting it in my opinion. I mean, taking it to where I can upload, you can download it, and I get paid. I mean, it's just, and in Bitcoin. Yeah. So what brought you to K.IM? What made you realize that K.IM was where you needed to bring the whole mega model up towards?
Yeah, well, it's a couple of things. Number one, I followed crypto early on, and I could see its potential, and I could see that that's the future. So once I understood that, I wanted to be involved in crypto. The other thing is it's a natural evolution. What I've done with Megaupload and then later with Mega.NZ, like you said, what I'm creating now is the result of basically a decade of experience creating these things. And what we've done with K.IM, I think, is the result of all of these experiences. So I've created something new, and I think it's even better than anything I've ever done before, because you learn from all the things that didn't work out, and you try and make it better. So in this case, K.IM is basically, to explain it really simple, is a shop in a file. Every file that you have on your computer, or every zip archive or whatever, you can create into a shop with K.IM. So you upload your file to our service, or you use our app to do it locally on your computer, and we create a double encrypted file where the first encryption layer contains the file itself, your content, and the second encryption layer is the payment layer. And in order to open the contents of the encrypted layer, you need to make a payment. So it's all happening within the file. There's no website involved. You don't have to go to any third-party service to do it. And you have peer-to-peer transactions with your customers, right? So that's really the promise of crypto. The financial freedom and your freedom to transact and do the things that you want to do. And we are opening that door in a powerful way with this new solution.
It's kind of funny you mentioned the word freedom. I was working on some clips for your Kim team, and one way I looked at presenting this is it gives me the freedom to upload my content, gives you the freedom to download the content, and it gives me the freedom to get paid for my content. It's like a trifecta. Now, why did you guys decide to go with the liquid sidechain with Bitcoin to make this work?
Well, over the last few years, there were a lot of developments in the crypto space, right? Ideally, we want the transactions to occur in real time. That has always been a bit of an issue with Bitcoin, because of the scalability limitations. But with Liquid, we're able to do this, and there are other innovations in the pipeline that will accelerate it even more. And we are keen to provide the best solution to our users, which is instant payments. And if you can get instant payments with Bitcoin, that's even better.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it defeats the argument that many people put out there of where you can't use Bitcoin for transacting purposes, right? As a currency purpose, because, well, there's a delay. Well, using the model that you're going with definitely goes against that idea. It proves that no, you can use it to transact. You can use it for its original purpose as a P2P currency. So, I mean, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, the Bitcoin blockchain was probably also a bit overwhelmed by the demand and by the popularity it has gained. And, you know, to be ready for the future with maybe 1 billion people using crypto in 10 years, you know, you want to have solutions that allow you to transact in real time. It is just a core requirement for this to become mainstream. So, you know, I felt that I got into the game a little bit early because the solutions weren't there yet when we started.
Mm-hmm.
And over the last 3 years, you know, we have evolved and made some changes and found good solutions for the problems that we were facing as a service provider and, you know, innovating this technology. But we're getting there, you know, and all this, the promise of crypto is really becoming more and more clear by the day. And it's beautiful to watch.
Speaking of the past 3 years, I did a thing on Twitter asking my audience, what questions do you guys have for Kim? A good friend of mine who's also in the cryptocurrency space, also a cryptocurrency YouTuber, he jumped on the Kim coin at the very beginning. And I think it was in 2016. And his thing was he felt like you did it in 2016 and then everyone disappeared for 2 years and all of a sudden everyone's back. Right. And he kind of got me thinking, because I mean, how many other people might be wondering the same thing? You know, was it 2 years of just absence? Was it 2 years of development? You know, 2 years of radio silence is a question he had. You know, what happened?
Well, software doesn't write itself, you know. So when we did our first round and raised the money to build the product, you know, it was still an idea in the early stages. To then develop the whole back end to write all the software that is required to make this work. And it's a complicated thing, not for the user. The front end is super simple and that is how it should be. But the back end, you know, it's also security sensitive. So you need to do a lot of thinking about how to make sure that your encryption cannot be cracked and that the payment process is secure, you know, so it's work. It's literally just sitting down and getting it done. And maybe, you know, I could have communicated a little bit more during that time, but I'm just so focused, laser focused on the work. And I just wanted to, you know, deliver the product. And also in the process of making it, the market has been changing constantly. You know this. I mean, there's so many changes, so many new things like Liquid, like Lightning, you know. They came along and boom, there we are. We need to implement this. This is better. Let's do this. So it's a natural process, really. So nothing writes itself, you know, until we have AI. Then you just tell AI, do this, and 15 minutes later, you have your software complete and ready and bug-free, you know?
Yeah, you're going to open a whole new can of worms. We talk about AI with people nowadays.
Yeah, well, that's the future, you know?
It is. I completely agree. Now, talking about K.IM, Mega.NZ is alive. It's pumping. Will you be migrating the users from Mega over to K.IM, or will Mega still be operating as its own entity?
Well, Mega is a separate entity, and I'm not involved in Mega NZ anymore. You know, I innovated it, I started it, I benefited from it to be able to defend myself, because for me, Mega NZ was really a stepping stone. The US government seized all my assets, so I had to create something new. So I sold out early on to be able to pay my legal bills. You know, I've spent like $30 million on lawyers, and that money had to be created somehow, else I would already be gone and underground. You know, the US government threw their entire weight and their entire power at me while at the same time taking away all my abilities to defend myself. So I had to be smart and find a way to fight back.
You know, it might be your fault that we had just had another round of quantitative easing over here in the U.S. We had to print more money.
Yeah. Well, and that is really another thing why I believe so much in crypto, because the U.S. government can't continue at this rate printing money and devaluing fiat, you know, because this Ponzi scheme is not going to hold up very long, you know. And when you look at the US economy now, it's basically all a pump and dump scheme financed by newly printed dollars from the Federal Reserve on the orders of the government. In the last few years, $7 trillion have been printed and then given as interest-free loans to major banks to prop up the stock market. That is not sound economics. That is completely crazy. And sooner or later, that thing is going to backfire in a big way. And that's, I think, when the big time for crypto will start. Because once people, you and I, we know this already. But once the majority of the people out there realize that they have been cheated and that the financial markets are a big scam and a government-run Ponzi scheme, they are all going to escape to a new solution. And what is that going to be? It's going to be crypto, you know? Yeah. So this time will come. We will see massive economic turmoil around the world, not just in the US, because of the way they are cheating us, the way they are working with fiat right now to pump up markets and create this fake economic growth, you know? So when that happens, solutions like K.IM or anything to do with crypto are, of course, going to see a meteoric rise.
I like the fact that K.IM utilized Bitcoin instead of going with an altcoin model because of this very discussion that you're on right now. The Wall Street market cap, last I checked, was somewhere like $22, $23 trillion, right? They estimate that about 11 trillion of that is quantitative easy money. It's funny money, monopoly money, right? Yeah. So one that does, and I feel a lot of the community, the cryptocurrency community, has a hard time with me because I keep saying that now is not the time yet. I feel like we have to use Bitcoin as a currency for it to really grow the way it needs to grow. Whereas right now, everyone's treating it like a stock. We're letting the titans into trade, but we need that collapse. The moment that chaos happens, that financial collapse that spreads and everyone can feel worldwide happens, I feel like Bitcoin at that moment, like you do, is going to get its true adoption. It's going to be seen for what it truly is, right? An asset where you have only 21 million. You can't carry debt with it. You can't QE it. Right now, we have derivatives where we're making paper Bitcoin. A long enough timeline that's going to fail. But you know, you utilizing Bitcoin is almost as if you're positioning K.IM for that moment in time when it happens, you know, by using Bitcoin versus using some other altcoin or some other currency. You know, I really like the fact that you guys went with Bitcoin. I mean, to me, it shows two things. A, you support the actual Bitcoin community, and two, well, obviously you are a visionary. You know, it's to me that was a wise choice versus where a lot of other projects are trying to create these altcoins and well, for lack of a better word, shit coins, and you know. But there really is no future to that because they're all tied to that one asset, Bitcoin, anyway. So I mean, it's a really delicate space. It's a really delicate situation that we're in with the fiat currency world. You know, so anything that is positioning itself to accept Bitcoin as a currency and utilizing it for transacting purposes, I feel it's going to it's going to be basically recession proof, or you can call it depression proof, or collapse proof in a lot of ways. I really do.
Well, a lot of people are in denial about this, but what you're describing and what I mentioned earlier is inevitable. Markets are going to explode because of the way they have been pumped up. You know, there's no doubt about it. Anyone, you talk to any economist who has a bit of an idea and is not in denial, and will tell you, you know, exactly what we're talking about. And I've been seeing this, you know, a long time ago, and I've always been, having Bitcoin on my radar because of the promise that it has. It really shifts power away from the banks and the governments to the people, and that is really how it should be. We should be free to transact. If I want to send you, the equivalent of $50 in Bitcoin, whose else business is it to tell me if I can or can't do that, or to control what I'm doing? It's just ridiculous. Like Bitcoin, early on had that promise to really give us financial freedom.
Congressman, what was his name? Brad Sherman. Congressman Brad Sherman called Bitcoin the currency of criminals. The currency to where...
Well, the US dollar and every other fiat currency is the currency of criminals.
Yes.
I mean, when you look at the rates in Colombia, when they enter into the house of the big drug lords, what do they have?
US dollars.
Stashes of US dollars. Exactly. So it doesn't matter what the currency is. There will always be criminals using that, whatever the most popular currency of the day is, and nothing is ever going to change that.
Well, you see, when I see congressmen saying stuff like that, or any politician talk about Bitcoin as the currency of criminals, the way I look at it is, how about this? Why not let the White House, for just even 24 hours, utilize the public ledger when spending the tax dollars? Why not do that for 24 hours? And let's just see how criminal it actually is, because there is no dark corners. There is no secrets on that public ledger.
Well, the percentage of, criminal dealings in any currency will always be the same.
Yes.
There's a set of individuals that will do things differently, and no matter what the currency of the day is, that's what they will use. So just because you use crypto, that percentage of criminals doesn't increase. You will have the majority of transactions will be perfectly fine between people who want to transact with each other. So it's really fear mongering. And you need to understand why this is happening and why they are doing this, because the system as it is set up now comes with enormous power. And the power sits with the government. And the power is that they can basically control the entire financial flow. They have the SWIFT system to sanction countries and stop them from being able to transact. It's a foreign policy tool, and we are being part of this game, this power struggle between the United States and other countries. With Bitcoin, all of that is gone. Mm-hmm. There's no leverage for any government to threaten anybody, and that is the beauty of it. It will offer a bigger way to peace and a faster way to diplomacy, rather than having the bully US government sanction everyone into the ground and ruining their economies just because they can, because they feel like, well, today you're not our friend, so we're just going to go after you and use our financial might, the control that we have of the global financial system, to put you in line. And that's not how it should work. It's ridiculous that, and by doing that, the US is already forcing other countries to look at alternative ways of dealing rather than with the US dollar. The Russians are very smart. Yep. They divested completely out of, they still have a little bit of US dollar holdings, but not much, and moved into gold. And they're all talking about their own cryptos. So they see the signs. They know what's happening and how the US is really destabilizing their US dollar by doing these sanctions and these foreign policy stunts, in addition to completely undermining the value of the US dollar by just endlessly printing more to prop up the markets that are all, the markets are about to crash for 3 years in a big way. And every time we're getting another palpitation in the heartbeat of the markets, what the US does, they do another adrenaline pump of money into the markets to keep it going, keep it afloat. But it's now such a fragile state. It can actually happen any day. You know, I don't know if it can go on another few years. It probably can, but sooner or later, this house of cards is going to fall down.
I think it was 2 weeks ago, Forbes polled the CFOs of the as many Fortune 500 companies or 100 companies as they could. And 60% of the CFOs that responded believe that the US, at least, at the very least, is heading towards a recession within the next year. 60% of CFOs. That's not a small number. That's significant. In the US, we've had a actual recession flag waved about a month and a half ago, to where bonds right now are being bought at the same rates that were bought the past 7 times we had a recession in the past 50 years. The writing is on the wall. It's very clear. The writing's on the wall. You know, and I hate to say this. All right. I mean, this is the crypto rebel in me coming out. I've literally moved my life towards Bitcoin because of those kinds of practices. I feel like right now, anyone who is living their life on the crypto and the crypto world in this community, I like to call it a community, is kind of recession proof. Because while $1 US can be worth, you know, various amounts, people keep talking, well, Bitcoin's worth this and Bitcoin's worth that, and keep trying to tie it to the US dollar. At the end of the day, one Bitcoin is still one Bitcoin, and there's only 21 million of them. You know, I just feel like those who have been in such serious denial of it put themselves at the greatest risks to be wrecked, you know, financially wrecked by just hanging on to those little threads of the fiat system as the writing is on the wall. Recession's coming, or overspending.
Yeah, but you know, you need to understand also, right? Give the people some credit, because they are being brainwashed by the media and by, you know, corporations, that everything is fine. You know, like all the news that you get out of the US is new job numbers and the economy is booming, and you know, it's like they're all repeating the narrative that the very people who create this Ponzi scheme are telling the world. You know, you can't really blame the public for not getting it, because they don't spend the time that you and I spend on researching this stuff. Yeah. But one thing is sure, the early adopters in crypto are going to be the winners, the big time winners when it happens. It is inevitable. It's going to happen. So if you are involved in crypto early on and you see the signs that we are talking about, you know, and by the way, this is not opinion. This is all based on facts. This is scientifically correct. You know, when you look at all the evidence out there, it is pretty clear that, you know, we're not spinning some kind of conspiracy theory, but that the markets are under enormous strain, and they are only kept alive by these cash injections from newly printed money, and that cannot continue forever. You know, that is going to fail ultimately, because there's no value behind it to back it up. So the early adopters in crypto are going to do really well in that time. That is going to be a real crisis. You know, I think it's not going to be a small crash. I think it's really going to change the world as we know it. You know, a lot of people are going to be hit very badly, and unfortunately, you know, will suffer as a result. But that will also be the awakening for people to see that what the government has done and how they have failed the citizens by playing this dirty game. And that in a result is going to be the birth really of a global crypto movement. Because right now it's still a niche. There are only about 2% of all internet users that have ever even used crypto. And that's going to change in a big way when everyone will be asking, well, what now? You know, it's all broken. It all crashed. It's all worthless. What now? Mm-hmm. And that's when crypto will have its meteoric rise.
Right now in the current state of where crypto's at, I'm a big advocate where I keep telling, I feel that crypto needs to be used as a currency. Bitcoin needs to be used as a currency, where if you watch CNBC, they'll tell you, oh, it's a store of value, hodl it, hold it, hodl it, right? You know, don't spend it. It's a store of value. It's going to be worth X amount down the road. Me personally, I'm against that model because I feel like it makes our community play into treating it like a stock. I spend it. I use it. On this channel, I've actually bought a Camaro SS with it, and I pre-ordered the new Corvette C8, not even out yet, with Bitcoin on this channel.
Nice.
I did it with the channel.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice.
you know, and so I practice what I preach. I put it into play, and I get looked at like I'm absolutely crazy. But the way I look at it is, yes, I'm spending it. Yes, I know one day it could be worth an insane amount of money, but I'm going to keep making it, right? I'm going to keep making it, but I'm going to structure my life to where even if I spend it, I'm going to keep making it, but I'm going to support the system and not make it become a store of value to where people just hang on to it and wish that someday it's going to be worth a lot of money and wish someday people will adopt it to spend it, you know? So where do you stand on this? Do you believe in that it should be used as a currency, or do you feel like people should use it as a store of value?
Well, one doesn't exclude the other. I think both combined make sense, right?
Right.
Look at it as gold. Now you have a gold that you can trade instantly, digitally.
Right.
You know, that's the beauty of Bitcoin. You know, you have, like you said, the limitation of 21 million Bitcoins, which guarantees, you know, that there will never be any additional value reducing increase of the pool. And at the same time, you can do what you can't do with gold and trade it in real time digitally, which is, you know, the best of both worlds. And for Bitcoin to succeed, it cannot just be a store of value. It needs to have, you know, millions or billions of people using it every day, you know, and at the same time, you have it as a store of value. What I always recommend to my friends that are asking me, you know, who have a lot of Bitcoin, what should we do? I always tell them the best that you can do right now is to use your Bitcoin to help the promise of crypto to succeed. And you don't do it by just sitting on it. You want to use it. You want to contribute to more blockchain technologies, to more, you know, enable the very people that are building the road to the future, you know, that they are able to do that. And with your contribution, by actually transacting, investing in crypto, you know, you can expand your empire by, you know, not just sitting on it, but making use of it, you know, and making use of it primarily in the crypto space. And that's also what I, you know, really my message to everyone who's listening to this is I'm not building K.IM just as a business, you know. I'm building it because I want to see crypto succeed globally and take over and give us this freedom that we deserve. So I was thinking, what can I do to make that happen? And the best way to do it is to create utilization, to create solutions that people can actually use, where they have a real benefit and it makes sense for them and they want to get engaged in crypto. So this is why this, you know, technology, I think, is going to be seeing some mass adoption, like all my other projects in the past. And I want more people to invest in crypto and use their Bitcoin to strengthen other entrepreneurs in the space. Because if they do that, let's say they take half of their holdings and invest it back into the crypto space, the other half is going to be worth so much more if they help crypto succeed. You see, we are all in the same boat. We all want the same thing. We want this promise of crypto to take place and to have our financial freedom. So we need to act smartly. You know, we need to combine our power and make it happen. You know, invest your Bitcoin in other crypto startups, help this whole thing grow. Don't just sit on it. And keep some, keep some for the beautiful rise that we'll have, but accelerate the growth, accelerate the speed at which we will get there by investing in crypto technologies.
I decided to take a different route. I try to get more people exposed to it. Right? I mean, I invest a lot of crypto. I help a lot of projects. I advocate for a lot of things, but I feel like what's happening right now, we have more people leaving the space right now than we have coming in. And it's because of a lot of misinformation. A lot of people got irresponsible. I mean, just a lot of crazy dynamics have happened since 2017. All right. I mean, we could spend all day talking about that, but I thought to myself, I'm doing decent in the crypto world. You know, I'm doing good, I'm comfortable. What can I do to expand the reach and have better conversations with more influential people about cryptocurrency? So what I decided to do was I'm gonna spend money on cars, and then I entered into the Gumball 3000.
Okay. All right. Now we're getting to an interesting part of this conversation.
Well, this is really interesting. So I entered the Gumball 3000, and what is his name? I'm going to tell you because you came up. Lee Bailey, who handles right now those who the new entry, the people enter the rally.
Yeah.
Said, I talked to him all the time. We had conversations. I mentioned that I was interviewing you on the channel, and he's like, "No way." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You know, you ran the Gumball before." I was like, "He's a Gumballer?" He's like, "Yeah, he's before my time, but he's a Gumballer." So I know we're supposed to talk about crypto, but I've talked to other Gumballers, right? And they always have interesting stories. And my plan is to go there and introduce a lot of people, you know, because I mean, the conversations happen. Let people talk about what you do. Just from hearing from other Gumballers, it's always healthy, fun conversation. And people always want to know what you're doing. So me being in the crypto space, I thought that'd be interesting. But what was your experience like going to the Gumball? Which year did you go?
I think I did 2007 or 2008 or something like that. Yeah.
What did you drive?
And then a tuned Mercedes. It was a V12 Mercedes from Brabus.
Oh, nice. That got horrible gas mileage.
Yeah, but I got an extended fuel tank in the back. I had it completely pimped out for the Gumball, and I could go twice the distance.
Oh, that's very clever. You should have taken that one for the Cannonball run to see if you can break a speed record.
Yeah, a Cannonball run. I mean, have you ever watched the movie Cannonball?
I never seen that movie.
That's really a cool movie with I think was it what was the name? I don't remember right now the actors, but that's what started this whole movement. There was a movie in the 80s, I think. You know, Cannonball.
Yeah. I've heard about that. Several people said to watch it. I have not seen it, but yeah, the whole road rally thing, the culture is insane. You know, and like the Gumball.
Is it Gumball? I think Jackie Chan was in it, and
when you were there.
No, not in the Gumball, but in that movie, you know, which kind of, I watched that as a teenager and I was like, wow, this is exciting, you know, and then Maximilian Cooper actually started the whole thing, you know, calling it Gumball 3000, and now for, you know, all these years, every year, car fanatics come together from all walks of life to drive 3,000 miles in 6 days. I mean, it's fucking insane if you think about it. And every night you arrive at a checkpoint, you're so fucking tired, but you still go to the party and, you know, do all the socializing and everything. It's a very cool event, but for me personally, it was very exhausting because I'm a competitive person. And there were a couple of people who were, you know, bragging that they're going to get first to all the checkpoints and da-da-da. And I just had to show them that that's not going to happen if I'm in the race, you know. And I actually did. I did really well.
It's funny. I've been debating on the car that I wanted to use. And everybody's going to go there with Lambo, Ferrari, you know, Pagani's. I mean, your crazy exotics, right? Your Koenigseggs. And this year it's from Toronto to Havana, Cuba. And I thought to myself, I did some research on all the guys in these high-end cars, and a lot of these guys have to bring support cars, especially for your Lambos and Ferraris. They require support cars. So it becomes a logistical nightmare and a headache. So I was like, well, how much horsepower do they have? How fast are they? And how do they track at the Nürburgring? So I looked for a car that was reliable, that tracked well at the Nürburgring, had good speed, good gas mileage. So I'm going to actually use I was going to use the Corvette C8 I pre-ordered, but I don't think it's a good idea because it's first generation and Corvettes are backbreakers. 3,000 miles on a Corvette is not comfortable. So I'm going to use a Camaro ZL1, which tracked the Nürburgring last month in 7 minutes and 16 seconds. 620 horsepower, supercharged motor, reliable. So I think that gives me a better chance. I won't need a sport car. I won't need any sport cars or anything like that. And I can get about 400 miles per tank. So I'm gonna try and see if I can beat the exotics with a car that costs a quarter as much as they do.
One piece of advice, and we got into this early on, is really fuel consumption. You need to have some extra fuel capacity if you really want to, get ahead they'd say it's not a race, but it's really a race. So if you want to get ahead in the race, you want to have something that gives you extra mileage. Now, that's not something most people want to do to their cars, add some extra fuel capacity. There are also security concerns and stuff with that. But if you find a company that can do it really well, just double your fuel capacity and you will win.
Oh yeah, I have some plans. I got some secret sauce I can't reveal on the on the video. I can't do that. It was funny in 2017. Some of the core developers from Bitcoin actually ran in the Gumball.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So when I found out about that, so a lot of these Gumballers have a huge interest in the crypto world, right?
Yeah.
But what's really strange is as I talk to more people in the world, is I'm learning that there's very limited resources for people in those walks of life, even your millionaires and billionaires. There's limited resources for them to go to actually learn the dynamics of this world. There's not a lot of top-notch educators. Like when I hear people like these analysts or these professionals that show up like on CNBC or Fox Money or something like that, and I hear them talk. I do this every single day. When I hear them talk, if I could throw something through that screen, it's like, what in the hell are you talking about? Just half the information that comes out of these people makes zero sense. So there's a shortage of ability for a lot of these guys to learn. So I'm hoping if I position myself right within a Gumball, to open more doors to where I can help introduce crypto. Hey, maybe even some K.IM to those guys while I'm out there, right?
I don't know of any other event in the world that has more revolutionaries and more free thinkers than the Gumball, because you need to be of a special kind of breed to take part in something like this, And every time I've been there, I made great friends with people that were surprisingly like-minded and, surprisingly free. You need to be a freedom lover to do something crazy like this, So I think you're going to make a good bunch of new friends, and it's going to help you, There will be people there that will surprise you. I mean, I remember my experience, and a lot of those people, you are a Gumballer for life. You did it once, you become part of this club, and Gumballers have this rule that wherever you are in the world, if you need help, you call a Gumballer and they will help you out. If you need a place to stay, if you need some help with your business or whatever, being in that community, which is a tight-knit community, we are all kind of like, we treat each other like war veterans, and we're there for each other. And a lot of the friendships that I've made during the Gumballs are lasting still, and those are the people that I'm most in touch with. And the funny story is, Gumball actually started Megaupload.
No.
Yeah, because I was making all these videos about my street racing escapades, right? And I wanted to share them with fellow Gumballers. They always ask me, "Hey, send me the latest clip," or "What crazy thing did you do today?" Right? So I put the videos together, trying to send them the clips, And the email system always said, but I had the emails bounce saying, you know, these files are too big. You cannot send them over email. And I'm like, what the fuck? You know, why can't an email server handle a 20 megabyte file? You know?
Mhm.
And then I thought to myself, well, let's just create a server where I can upload the videos, create a link, and then email the link to those gumballers. And that is actually how the idea for Megaupload started.
That is
So
insane.
isn't that funny?
Yeah, that is.
That's cool.
I'm going to your roots then. That's funny.
Yeah.
Maybe you should show up to the after party at Havana.
Oh my God.
You can go to Havana, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, as I say, you just can't go to the U.S. Stay far away from the U.S.
Yeah, and well,
So-
I can't go anywhere right now as long as I'm involved in these proceedings. I'm stuck in New Zealand, but you know, I definitely have fond memories of all my Gumball adventures.
Wait, so you are still stuck in New Zealand from all that?
Yeah, I cannot travel. I'm on bail. I have to report to police twice a week. You know, like a common criminal. This is a copyright case. It was always a civil case, and this has been going on now for almost 8 years. And it's not just me; it's also my co-defendants. You know, they came to New Zealand to my birthday party for a visit for a week. They have been stuck in this country for almost 8 years, you know, and that is just the ridiculousness of the US justice system and the bullying that they are doing everywhere around the world. It's ridiculous.
I had no idea that you were so basically in a lot of ways you're almost like house arrest, right? So I mean you can leave your house, but you're landlocked.
Yeah, but I'm stuck in New Zealand, and I've always been someone who traveled. And the funny thing is, New Zealand for me was only a holiday home. We came here maybe 2 or 3 months of the year, you know? Yeah, we had a nice house and everything, but my base was in Hong Kong. I was living in Hong Kong and loving Hong Kong, you know? So for me, I'm kind of forced now, and I have been forced for almost 8 years. In January, it's going to be 8 years to live here. And I've always traveled a lot, you know? I mean, everyone who knows about my past knows that I was every time in a different place. Now
you look,
I've been humbled by this experience, you know, not being able to travel is quite stupid.
I have a feeling the biggest party that Kim Dotcom throws is the day that all of this goes away and you can set foot off New Zealand soil. I have a feeling the biggest party that you can throw is going to happen after that somewhere. Probably.
Well, you know, hopefully when we win, there will of course be a big celebration.
I'm still kind of baffled. I actually kind of threw off my whole train of thought. See, I'm the same way. If my wings were clipped, or if I couldn't go and see, for me, like when I look at what I do, like with Bitcoin, a lot of people watch my channel, see that I have all kinds of cool little things here and there. I really, honestly, don't care for the things. If I could have one thing, it's just freedom. I look at all the tools, all the Bitcoin. Any bit of money I have is just a tool of freedom. That's all it is for me, is freedom. I want the freedom to eat what I want to eat, see what I want to see, go where I want to go. If I do actually want something, I want to be able to get it. It's freedom for me. I'm not. I don't worship the irrelevant things. I just like freedom. So to hear you say that is almost like it's like disrupting my soul to hear something like that. You know, someone like yourself, especially. That's pretty shitty, for lack of a better word. I mean, so like your yachts and all your things that you use, your airplanes, did you have to get rid of those?
Well, I mean, all of my assets have been seized. So I'm basically, after the raid, I was penniless. And then the US government forfeited it all. And the way they forfeited it was by declaring me a fugitive, even though I'm just legally defending against extradition, which is my right. And under the New Zealand law, you know, it's perfectly fine that I do this. But in the US, they declared me a fugitive, despite the fact that they know exactly who I am, that I'm on bail, basically under their control. And they did that to be able to prohibit me from from mounting a defense in US court, because if you're declared a fugitive, there's a thing called the fugitive disentitlement doctrine, which means you cannot use court time in the US. You are not permitted to defend yourself unless you are in the US jurisdiction. So while I couldn't defend myself, the US government proceeded with proceedings in court there, seizing all of my assets and forfeiting. Basically, my assets forfeiture means they take it, it's theirs. And without any due process. There's never been a hearing about the merits of this case. So you are basically, based on an allegation, you lose everything. And that can't be right, you know? And for me, having had this experience was quite an awakening, you know? I was always for, you know, internet freedom and like what you just said and described, you know, more freedoms in general. Like, who's the government to tell me what to do and what not to do, unless, you know, I heard somebody.
Yeah.
So for me, this whole experience was such a wake-up call, and it really generated in me this new instinct, political instinct, to try and do something about it and change this, because this is not right. You can't just point the finger at someone and say they have done this and this, and then basically be a judge and executioner and accuser in one role and take everything that they have built their entire life away. You know, that is just not, it doesn't make sense. People, you know, I don't think agree with that. And a lot of reactions after my case happened were, you know, in line with that. They said, what the hell are you doing? So they did go quite far, and it was quite unreasonable. But, you know, I am who I am, so I'm fighting back. And for me, the best way to fight back is to increase the amount of freedom that we all have by supporting the things like crypto or encryption in general. Anything that is encrypted is better than not, because, you know, the US government is committing mass surveillance against the world population, spying on everyone full-time, 24/7, every day. Every email, every text message, every voice call that you make ends up in a spy cloud in Utah, you know, one of the largest data centers in the world, that just collects all communications of all people 24/7, you know? So by using encryption, you free yourself from that. You can free yourself from these intrusions by the government with technology. And that is what I'm excited about, because they can legislate as much as they want. They can take away all these freedoms on paper. But in reality, if we have the technologies to take our freedom back with encryption, with crypto, well, then they're really powerless, you know? And it's the invisible hand, the society, that decides what is fair and what is not. What are the right rules and what are bad rules that we should just ignore, you know? And crypto is really, I think, the most powerful tool in that space.
It is that the cryptocurrency, that unconfiscatable, decentralized, I can transact 24/7, 365 the way I want to, with whom I want to. It's just, I don't know. I can't put in words how much I appreciate having something like that, right? But if we go towards a conversation of surveillance, if you talk to the average American, all right, and tell them, hey, listen, that cell phone that you're carrying with you everywhere monitors everything you do. Everything you do is documented. Every step you've taken, every mile you've ever driven, every plane you've ever gotten onto, it's all there. There's we are all documented. And if you ask them, you know, when in history has people ever been so documented? Where have we ever had a time in history where we had anything close to this? And most educated people can go think to themselves, well, Nazi Germany, you know, we had a time where you had to show your papers, everyone's accounted for, those really strict rules, right? Everyone was documented. And it's kind of sad to hear that we're at a time now where people don't even care about that. We've forgotten that part of history. We glorify the, you know, D-Day and things like that, and we feel sorry for what happened to the people in the Holocaust. But we forget and don't ever talk about the tools that we use to make a lot of those things possible, are tools that we have now times 1,000. But another thing about American people is if you say to them, you know, what would you do if you knew you were monitored? What would you do if you know every personal thing you had was contained somewhere? How would you fight back? Most Americans will tell you that they won't. And the reason they won't is because the way our government works here, you step up, right? And you protest. You open your mouth and you say that this is wrong, it's illegal, and people start gathering behind you, you will be buried in paperwork and stuck in some sort of cell somewhere, and you will be silenced. And then you will be forced into a plea deal. You will take the plea deal because if you don't take that plea deal, you will more than likely spend a lot more time isolated in some other box. You know, the options you have here to stand up for yourself, they're getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and people don't do anything about it because we have a country of fear. Everybody fears litigation. We fear each other even. We can't, someone falls down the road out here, if someone falls down on the sidewalk in front of you out here, this is a true story. You may not know this. The likelihood that you're going to go and pick that person up is pretty low because the first thing that goes to your mind is, oh, this person might sue me. We have such a litigious environment. Everybody's always put in check with our judicial system. Everything from the smallest basic humanities to to going to the top as far as how our politicians treat us. It's people are scared, and I hate to say that. I hate to say that, but it's true.
Well, you made an interesting point earlier. Can you imagine someone like Hitler having access to the kinds of technologies that exist today? You know, mass surveillance tools. I mean, it is just a matter of time until these tools are getting into the hands of someone with malicious intent. There will always be another dictator. There will always be people abusing their power. If we know one thing about human history, we know that they always exist. They always return in one shape or another. And if you have a turnkey totalitarian state, like we have now in the US, with all of these tools at their disposal, it is just a matter of time until that is being abused to really crack down on the opponents of the time, on the dissidents, on the people that speak out, you know, the people that fight for freedoms. And so the signs are definitely there. And the problem that I see is that countries around the world are now engaged in an arms race of mass surveillance. Everyone wants to have the same tools and technologies that the US has to control the population, you know? So they are competing with each other in that space, and governments are spending billions of dollars everywhere to try and catch up with the US. And that's a really bad trend because, you know, sooner or later, you will see what I just described happen in one of these countries. And there will be no opposition because they will all be wiped out. The computer systems will tell them who to go after to, you know, silence dissent. And that is something that is quite dangerous, especially if you combine it with AI. And AI is on the horizon. Imagine you have a computer that can get all this data, inject all this data of all the communications of all people around the world in real time and analyze it to find connections, to find who you should root out to maintain your power. And that is exactly how it's going to be. So for people who are naive about this and say, I have nothing to hide, I don't really care about them doing this, you know, they're just wrong because they don't understand how this can be used in the future and how dangerous it is that any government has the power to do these things, because power has always in human history been abused in one way or another, sometimes bigger, sometimes not that big, but it's going to happen again. And you know, the citizens are going to be the big losers in this struggle, unfortunately.
I actually, being in the cryptocurrency space as long as I've been and spending as much time as I have spent learning about our industry and why the price of Bitcoin does what it does, why coins move the way they do, why government does what they do. Why do we have certain legislations coming out by the government? Why does the government team up with the CME and the CBOE to create derivatives? All that has taught me a lot about how our government works. And I've come to realize that it's actually not, say, someone as a president or actual members of Congress who come up with a lot of these ideas of, hey, let's create this. It's lobbyists. This is truly corporate America. If you look at like how Bitcoin is treated, this isn't from the ideas of our politicians. This is from the ideas of the people who pay them, who pay for their campaigns. If you look at a lot of the stuff that comes from surveillance, I've actually spent a lot of time researching a lot of this stuff. Ever since I read Snowden's book, by the way, I spent more time researching a lot of this stuff. And it's easy to track this. It's easy to figure out where the ideas come from. So, I mean, I don't look at how or what, I look at why. Why is everything. Like, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, right? And that's how you sell something. And you sell these ideas to politicians, and these politicians are like, oh man, this is a good idea. Man, this would make me look like a hero. By the way, I need X amount of dollars to make this work. No problem. I don't feel like these is ideas that come from an individual, but these are ideas as far as the mass surveillance and how to spy on people and to create these technologies. These are, in my opinions, all the ideas of the people who manufacture this kind of software and this kind of hardware to pull these things off. They implant these ideas in the politicians take them, they run with it, hopefully get better elections, make them look a superhero. I feel like it's a dirty system. And even if you go back as far as your case, if you look at where you're at, and if you actually take the time to look at how all this came about, this was truly not the idea of any of our politicians. It was the idea of the corporations who are going after you.
These corporations are, in my case, the large movie studios that are organized under the Motion Picture Association of America. And they hired a senator, Kristof, who has been in the Senate for decades and who was a personal, or is still a personal close friend of Joe Biden and Obama. And they basically hired a guy who has the right relationships to get things done. And that guy, I don't know if you're aware of this, the Democrats receive about $100 million from the copyright lobby, let's call it that, every year for all their different campaigns. So that money has a purpose. That's not just given because they really like the Democrats so much. That money is given in exchange for favors, tax breaks, new business legislation that helps them. And of course, they use that political sway of Kristof together with some pressure, because I don't know if you remember when the Megaupload case happened, Obama was about to get into his second term campaign for getting reelected. And on Fox News, prominently, Kristof said, well, we're not going to send any more checks if you don't do something about piracy. Don't expect us to send you more money until you solve our problem. And then they tried with something called SOPA. I don't know if you remember this, the Stop Online Piracy Act. Yeah. Millions of people protested and went on the streets and called the Congress and said, we hate this legislation. It's basically censoring the internet. And they couldn't do it. Obama couldn't do it. They had to stop the legislation. Kristof got even more mad. And plan B, to at least deliver something to Hollywood, was the destruction of Megaupload. So I became this toy in this political game, that they are playing. And lobbyists are really just, it's just open corruption, because they pay politicians to get what they want. So the people who really run things, when you're asking about, why is this mass surveillance happening and expanding and all these technologies that allow the government to monitor us, this is all for corporate interests. This is all economic spying. They're not really after the terrorists. A terrorist that is a mastermind in terrorism knows all these things. They're not using an iPhone or Twitter. You know, they're hiding somewhere because they know exactly what the capabilities of the US government are. So these tools are being used for to achieve economic advantages and also to achieve more power. You know, because in that database of all communications, you don't just have regular citizens. You have diplomats, politicians, judges, everyone who is aware of, you know, the capabilities of the deep state is scared of the deep state because they know these guys have all my secrets. They know everything about me, you know, and judges, just like everyone else, they have a dirty side to them. Something that they are doing is certainly wrong. And they all become exposed to, you know, to those secrets, and that they can be used against them. And now you are in a situation where the courts are completely corrupt, you know, because the judges want to be in favor of the deep state. They don't want to be subject to any kind of case coming out or story coming out or leak coming out about them and their indiscretions, you know.
Yeah.
So the whole system is really designed to provide more power to the 1% that are really running things. You know, if you think Donald Trump has any power or is running anything, you are naive. You know, it's the people that pay for everything, that pay their puppets, you know, that get in the end what they want. And the deep state is an industry, it's a business. You know, this is not about you know, fighting for freedom or fighting for America or being a good patriot. It's all about how do we make more money? How can we steal more money from other nations? How can we steal their secrets? And while they are doing this, and this is the funniest thing of all, the hypocrisy, they are pointing the finger at China and everyone else and saying, oh, they are stealing our technology. They are hacking into our systems. They are taking away our, you know, economic growth by doing this. But the US has been doing this for decades. You know, the US GDP, the part of the global GDP, would never be 25% as it is now. The global GDP, 25% of it is just the US, has been stolen, ransacked, taken from everybody else by using these tools. And this whole mass surveillance system is only part of that, you know? And now other countries are coming out, you know, China with 5G. What a big threat to the US that is, because they have a few years advantage in development. They got out of the gate earlier. They have a really good technology. And the more countries and network providers implement it, the more power the US is losing in the mass surveillance race, because now you have a network that is completely controlled by a Chinese entity. That is what this whole Huawei and China trade war is all about. The US deep state doesn't want to lose their surveillance power. They want to expand the surveillance state, and they don't want to give a share of it to other countries. So the more you read about it, and I'm glad you're reading Snowden's book, I'm glad that you seem to be quite switched on about these things. The more you understand about the motives of mass surveillance, the more you see that there really needs to be a movement to shut that down, because it's not benefiting individuals, you know, it's benefiting a handful of greedy people that want to use their power for their advantage. This is not to benefit you or any US citizen in reality. You know, it's all a big criminal organization that thinks that they can invade our privacy in this way.
When we first started talking, we talked about failure, right? It takes failure to grow wisdom. When anyone asks me what would I classify myself as, I actually always say I'm a failure, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud to say I'm a failure, and the reason I'm proud to say that is I've literally failed my way forward in life. That's taught me to look at things differently and not to follow the herd, right? always look for the shepherd. Why is the shepherd flocking their herd the way he is? So when I got into cryptocurrency, and also when you fail enough, you learn, when you learn how to fight harder for the things you're more passionate about. Cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, is something I'm very passionate about. Actually, what you don't see behind me, behind this wall, then another wall, there's $1 million Bitcoin mining farm behind me. This was set up, right? This is actually where I'm sitting at. We call this the crypto bunker. This was set up during the bear market. I started the idea during the bull market, right? So I kept going. I kept going through the whole bear market. People thought I lost my mind setting up a Bitcoin mining farm through the whole bear market. But doing that made me look at everything differently, made me reassess things differently, maybe weigh things out differently. Then as we got into 2019, I looked at the whole CME, the CBOE. I looked at how the SEC and the CFTC, the Treasury Department, the Fed. I mean, I became very savvy with how our judicial system, our legislative system, and our executive system, all that works when it comes to how they regulate things, because I was seeing what they were doing to Bitcoin. And I knew that they were behind what was going on. And I started to learn how all this worked. And then when you start in one area of your world is disrupted that you're passionate about, like you with Megauploads, right? You were passionate about that. It got disrupted. You were forced to look at that different, like this. I was forced to look at all this different. But once you let your mind run into that dark abyss, you just keep going. And then you start seeing light. And that light shines in all kinds of dark corners. You see things differently, and it becomes very disturbing. That's why I look at your case. I don't see what you've gone through the same way everyone else does, or most people do. I look at it the same things that I see my world going through in cryptocurrency, because we threaten the whole Fed. We threaten the US dollar. We threaten the world economy. I see that, and I see how they're reacting. You really didn't threaten anything. You just created a good idea. You were, for lack of a better word, a scapegoat. You were just, like you said, a toy.
Well, I am what they call a disruptor,
A disruptor?
And my technology, of course, has disrupted the traditional content space. No question about that. But the intention was not to do anything criminal. The intention was to provide people with a technology that makes their lives easier, period. Yeah. That is how simple you can describe this. Yeah. But in every time in history, right, when a new technology emerges, the candle makers stood up to the first, light bulb producers. Because they were like, what the fuck, this is devil technology, yeah. Don't put this in your home, your soul is going to burn, right? Yeah. Or any kind of new technology that disrupted something that was the standard previously is being attacked, and it's the same with me. The same thing. There was an industry that felt threatened by the internet and threatened by these new technologies, and they used their political corruption by bribing politicians to shut it down. And that's the way things are dealt with these days, Yep. And unfortunately, I got into the middle of that. But the case has not gone well, for the US. I mean, everyone is looking at this. In New Zealand law, there's not even any criminal statute that criminalizes any of the content that the US is alleging. So, I hope ultimately that we will win and prevail, and that I can continue to disrupt with new technologies. By the way, no matter what happens in my case, K.IM is running independent of me. I have set it up in a way that no matter what happens to me, that's going to continue, that's going to grow. We have an excellent team of people that know exactly what the vision is, and they are executing it perfectly. So my case shouldn't deter anyone from getting involved in K.IM.
Good deal. That's good to know. Listen, I've kept you on for about 2 hours. Conversation like this is very rare to come by. And I wish more people would have conversations like this, about good quality projects, about what's really happening with the world. I feel like it's very stimulating. I hope everyone learns something from this, or maybe even encourage some people to look deeper into their own beliefs and how things are done, and the importance of cryptocurrency, and the importance of people like yourself who are trying to create platforms that encourage freedom. You know, bottom line, it's freedom. Like what I like about, like I said, when I was doing some recordings for you guys, I thought about it. I was like, yes, I have the freedom to upload. Someone else has the freedom to receive that file, and I have the freedom to get paid for it. You know, it's just that's what life's about. It's all about freedom. It's not about money. It's about freedom. You know, and that's I think a lot of people really take that for granted and have forgotten what it is. I really feel that most people have forgotten what freedom actually is day by day. It's just very disturbing. You, of course, appreciate all kinds of freedom. Freedom to you right now has a whole new meaning because you're stuck on an island. So, I mean, you know, I'm sure in time you'll definitely prevail. But Kim, I really appreciate you coming on the channel, talking about K.IM. Make sure you guys check out K.IM. Link for it will be down below. Kim, thanks again.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.